Welcome to the SNN Network Canada virtual event. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Brandon Taylor, President and COO of OneSoft Solutions. Brandon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Brandon Taylor, President and CEO of OneSoft. Just to kind of give you some background, we are a SaaS software company focused exclusively on recurring revenue. Our solution is Cognitive Integrity Management, or you'll hear me refer to it as SIM. The mission-critical enterprise solution today focused on oil and gas pipeline operators, really targeted in the midstream space currently. Been validated and deployed by 12 of our customers who are Fortune 500 and 100 companies, including a super major. Just recently signed up the largest pipeline operator in the world. We now have over 100,000 miles of piggable pipe under subscription, or 150,000 total miles. I'll take you through that a little bit as we go. Roughly 289 engineers are using our solution as their primary solution to do their job every single day. And our mission really in life is to predict pipeline failures, save lives, and protect the environment with the assistance of machine learning and data science and cloud computing. As you probably have heard and may not be aware, this industry has typically been a laggard industry, but it's fully going through a digital transformation stage, and we're playing a pretty pivotal role within that. One of the things that I want to do today is welcome those that are new to the story and appreciate those who've been with us for some time. I'm going to try to blend this conversation maybe from what I've done in the past and give some updates. And for those who are new, these presentations are posted so you can go see the history of those. I want to make sure that we're getting updates out there as we can. One of the key takeaways on this slide, which pretty current because we manage and we're aware of it, is that still huge insider ownership, 33%, 6.5 million in cash, no debt. So we monitor those and we're tracking towards those. Normal disclaimer information, so just want to make sure that all of that is taken into account. A little bit about the industry. And there's been updates since the last time we met. PHMSA, and for those who don't know, within the U.S., and the reason we focus on the U.S. is because under the Department of Transportation, it's an agency, Pipeline Hazardous Safety Materials Agency, that regulates any pipeline operator, whether that's liquid or gas. They create regulation through industry and vendor input and have been doing this for decades. So recently they've introduced new regulation about gathering line, which we think will have some influence on our solution, and that as we go through this, I'll explain where we think we can, existing clients and potentially new clients that may have more work to do now could use a solution such as ours. But the concept within the industry in general is that PHMSA regulates that an operator, if you're liquid, has to run one of these tools every 5 years across the same section of pipe just to inspect and find out what's happening on that pipe. This tool is called a PIG, or a pipeline inspection gauge, and the data that comes out of it is called the inline inspection, or ILI data set. And that typically what will happen is an operator will contract. There's roughly about 45 of these tool vendors. We're not a hardware vendor, nor are we affiliated with any hardware vendor, so we're vendor agnostic, tool agnostic. Each tool may have different technology. We really don't care about that. It has odometer wheels on the bottom and sensors, as you can see here on the side. And what they do is they put this in a launch valve. Product, whether that's liquid or gas, pushes it down, they take it out, the tool vendor aggregates that data, happens to be on the tool because, as you can appreciate, pipe's buried in the ground, and then they send that to a pipeline operator. Pipeline operator has then taken that data, and they typically will get it as an Excel CSV file. They'll say, when did we run this tool on this segment of pipe previously? Maybe more frequent than 5, at a minimum 5 years, liquid 7, and they'll then start comparing these. And that's about how 80% of the operators that we've onboarded do it today. And manually, lots of manual process, and they outsource it. So that process takes a lot of time, as you can appreciate, and it creates really just no data management process or systems. In fact, over the years and decades, a bunch of siloed data sets have occurred within operators, all types of legacy systems that we see, and literally 80% of the people are doing this manually in Microsoft Excel, which basically poses why there needs to be more regulations, and incidents still occur on average about 1.7 per day in the U.S. Here in before the next 2 days are over, somewhere another incident will happen. If you look at this at a macro level, you can see that just in 2020, there were over 500,000 gas leaks and almost 4,600 spills at an average cost of $325 million on a 3-year, almost $1 billion. While the industry does have objectives to get to this zero failure, we don't think they're going to be able to do that without a solution that incorporates data science, data management, data science, cloud computing, all of the things that SIM does today. So as we look at the industry in general, one of the things that we'll look at is what they would do in relation to that, right? So this is our solution. It's a born in the cloud solution. We built it from the ground up on Microsoft Azure. All you need is a browser, whether that's Chrome or Edge. And today, as I mentioned, almost 300 integrity engineers log in to this same interface that you see here. And it's really an enterprise-wide solution. And so which tools are you going to run, which vendors, which tech? When you run them and you get the data, are we in compliance from a regulatory perspective? We've built OneBridge algorithms around growth of those anomalies over time. We're also, and I'll talk about this, incorporating risk. So within this workflow, you'll be able to literally drag the file on within minutes to a few hours, know if you're in compliance, where growth's happening, where there's risk above your risk reliability thresholds, and then you'll be able to action that. So then that means you're going to create a dig plan. You're going to send that out to excavation crews. When they're done, they'll ingest that data back in, and we'll align that data back to where you went to dig originally. And that's not occurring today in most cases. In fact, there's operators, and there hasn't been an operator yet that we visit that basically hasn't gone out and done multiple digs at the same spot because they're not aligning and tracking all of this data together. And some digs are very expensive. We don't do a bunch of visualizations as you're looking at here. This is an example where we had 3 runs that were different technology, crack, dents, and corrosion, all overlaying, and that's an immediate dig, and that's where that threat was. So we really help operators, coalesce all of this data, visualize it, and prioritize it. And I'll talk about basically what that means from a benefit cost perspective, as well as for the first time in the industry, just to kind of put that in perspective, we've aggregated, I think we're up to over 65 million features across all of our customers, and that's never happened. We go to vendor events, and other vendors ask us, how did you get operators to give you their data? And we've had no challenges with them giving us our data, and we can run actually data science experiments across that data. So at some point, we'll have an ability to basically discover things that industry, quite frankly, hasn't even got to yet. All of this is great. As we all know, when we went through oil crashing and then COVID hit, operators and customers came to us and said, for us, digital transformation had started. For us, we have to show net cost savings to be able to onboard new technology in this solution. So we spent about 2 years building a cost savings model, legit formulas with variables, and we give that to operators and say, you plug in the variables. And there's roughly about 6 different areas, and we tie that back to the solution. So for every area of the solution, they can understand how much they would save. Today, we're saving about 3.3 million in production trials. On average, across all the customers that we've onboarded, about 10x of what they do today. And the reason we know that is because they tell us what they do today and for the solution. So that scale is starting to cause scaling faster is because, as we learn more and they give us information, we have more data aggregates, and we've been talking about this for years, quite frankly, that we are actually within operators to truly understand. It's important, I guess, to say that, until you start pressing and thinking about this from an operator's perspective at a macro level, it's very common for us when we first engage, a couple of our questions are, how many miles of pipe do you have? It's not uncommon for them not to know, which seems, counterintuitive, but, they're just running tools, they've never agged it because they're in multiple Excel sheets. How many runs do you do? Don't know. So they have to go to different divisions and figure out how many tool runs they do as an organization. That alone kind of helps drive why you need an enterprise system. It's just right there. We run this many tools. This is how much it costs us. This is how many miles of pipe we have. This is where we need to schedule our next runs, all of that stuff. So what we're most excited about is one of our first customers, Phillips 66, in 2020. They were awarded the API Distinguished Pipeline Safety Award. So this is back to that 0 failures, and it had 0 failures. And we had a lot of influence, played a very significant role in that award. So we're starting to see, the benefits corresponded and correlated to the cost savings. And I'll talk as we kind of go through this and we start looking at the market and kind of go forward on what we're doing going into 2022 related to the sales strategy and organizationally, because we're going to make some changes there. One of the significant, we came out of Microsoft Accelerator in 2016. It was their very first data science machine learning. We've been working with Microsoft for 18 years. We're a managed partner, and every month we meet with a partner development manager, work very heavily. We just did a webinar on their very first industry series on energy, and we're the first vendor they asked to basically present with them. So we do a lot of stuff with work with all of their sales reps. So we're continuing to do that. They're bringing us in. They're getting more strategic in energy and specifically midstream. So we'll continue to do these industry sessions. What's important to understand there, Microsoft has had a challenge is that this is a laggard industry to get cloud adoption. That's starting to occur, and we're kind of a driving force within the midstream space for that. When we signed up Phillips way back in 2017, we were their very first SaaS solution, very first cloud solution. They'd looked at Microsoft's cloud, the last 5 years, and they had no plans until we came on. And then they moved the whole organization to the cloud. So that means Teams, Windows 10, all the kind of downstream stuff that flowed up. So Microsoft's really understands kind of what we can do within this space, and is really trying to help us do it. We look at TAM, we've talked about this in our MD&A, and we have a very comprehensive MD&A. We've spent a lot of time within it. I would encourage you to go through and read that. We're focused on this inline inspection, or the ILI. We've recently announced this year that we've entered into a technology sharing agreement with SEDAR Technologies, and we've gathered IP and hired a product manager for corrosion management that's going to facilitate this cathodic protection and stuff. The updates on that are SEDAR has 9 probabilistic risk models. Today, the industry runs on what they call index-based models, which means that humans are basically assigning weights to different types of events. So an example, if our pipeline runs under the river, I need to weigh that higher than this other scenario. Probabilistic models and FIMS have now given guidance to operators is that they need to start moving to those, because it really takes the human out of the equation and moves it based on data. CEFR's, part of the Alberta Innovates research organization that's been in this industry for 25 years, and they have 9 models that we're now in process of incorporating. We have 4 models in. Our objective is to get all 9 models so they can run in SIM end to end, And then we've been working with operators, and we'll have to flow into Q1 because from what they have today based on the index versus these probabilistic, we're really mapping the data that we need that they may have not been using, and then the reverse will be true, meaning that they may have data that they've been feeding into the index models that CFERS models don't need. So we're working with them on a weekly basis. We'll continue through that. Our objective is to get the probability of failure by the end of the year, and then probably in Q1 we'll move into consequence of failure. Probability times consequence equals total risk by joint across our whole pipeline system. So they'll know which pipeline systems, which specific joints are the most risky joints across the whole pipeline system. And just to put week, we're managing roughly about 13 million joints of pipe across all of our customers across North America right now, and that'll continue to grow. So that's risk. Corrosion management, we have a private preview. We've defined a roadmap with 4 phases in it. We should be close to finalizing where we're in phase 2, which is kind of the non-required ILI data. The difference there for those that are not new to the story is that we've revamped our licensing model so that we can basically launch with just corrosion management without integrity, ILI, and all of that process. And then in phase 3 and 4 is if you have ILI, these are the benefits that you're going to get. That'll define our MVP, which will launch, and then these private operators. We have one operator that's looking to come in that's not even a client right now. They just want to focus on corrosion management. So we're hoping that's kind of a land and expand model, and we'll use that as a model for other operators as we go who may not be clients. And it'll help us kind of evolve that model. We look at this from a macro perspective, new growth. From a global perspective, this is the U.S. Oops, I probably hit the wrong slide. Sorry, I have an animation in here. This is the worldwide TAM, same problems across the world, just a different TAM here. This slide I like best. Won't get into kind of the licensing and the blue line, which is revenue, and why it's all lumpy. Lots of reasons for that, and I don't know that we'll ever fix it so it's just a flat, normal SaaS just because of the way this industry operates and the way that we have to go to market. But the white line is super important because it shows contract value. What we've done there is we've taken, these are typically multi-year contracts. Our average is about 5. What's nice about this is the sales cycles, while they're long, and we continually try to pivot on sales and pivot on process and all of that to shorten those cycles. And we'll continue to do that as once you get in, change is hard in this industry, so the stickiness is very sticky. The moat becomes quite large, as you can see from risk and corrosion management. There's a ton of white space on that other part of the TAM. And more importantly is that we're actually building true ARR on this contract value. So we've taken whatever that contract value is over the term, normalized it across the years and then quarter, and that's what you're seeing in this line. 19, we have to do some pivoting around sales. 20, COVID hit. Omicron is kind of, for the remainder of this year has kind of put some questions on some stuff. We think we're going to come out of that fine. We check in Houston and things seem to, already back to normal. But that white line's going, and you can see from a 5-year perspective on CAG, we got 82.7%, averaging 16 over quarter for the last 20 quarters. And we believe we have sufficient cash on hand to just continue to fund the business. From a sales perspective this year, we opened up Canada. We have other prospects in Canada now. What's nice about that is the U.S. is highly regulated, the most regulated around the world. So we started there for that reason. But every country does have regulations to some kind. So we have to go learn what those are, incorporate those into the solution so we can roll out each country. And that's the process that we're doing with this client that we just signed on. So they've already started onboarding. We've already started getting their conditions that are similar to what the PHMSA were, and we're starting that process. The blues are where we have signed customers. The greens are where we have new leads. and we'll continue to work either production trials, RFPs, however those process works. Sorry, I keep hitting this next instead of animation. From an awareness in process and have been for the last 2 months to get ramped up for 2022. And the primary objective within that year is to basically get the core cells so we can scale it. What does that mean? And we're likely going to pivot from a results type style to more consultative benefit cost analysis and shorten these cycles, as well as we're going to probably start looking at other tiers within the industry. So we'll start doing ROI and business plans related to that. For those operators who may be sub 1,000 miles, we got to go figure out if there's a way we can go to market on that. Microsoft's made that easier from the perspective is that they have a marketplace now with margins that make it more attractive. We participated in their private preview a few years back and found that the margins didn't make sense for us to launch, nor the sophisticated way the solution had to be deployed, etc. They fixed a lot of that. So we'll look at that. There's other initiatives that we're looking at. Lots of inbound stills that we get from an awareness perspective. And we're really looking to basically kind of figure out how to flow those in. We're going to do some rework changes from the perspective is that we're going to tie, probably introduce a layer of product management that can work more closely with sales from what we've done today. That's traditional in software. So we're going to start looking at that. Innovation Lab is really in business development is what I'd like to call this, is always looking for opportunities from a BD perspective. We did finish a pilot on water and sewer. We've been talking about that for a few years now, and we finished it technically. We've proven that our solution, we've ingested data from tools that ran on a pipeline and aligned it and basically, communicated back to the customer that you got a lot of a replacement pipe you have to do because you have a lot of anomalies, they're growing, etc. So technically, we feel very comfortable with where it is. What we need to go understand is go to market, and that means it's just different. We have for-profit, public pipeline operators today. That is probably when we move into water and sewer, it's going to be more along the municipality, the city, county, government. And so we got to figure out how that process and the economics related to that and how we go to market on that. We really need to get in front of people within the industry, conferences, and COVID has prevented us from doing that. We're hoping in 2022 we can get back and figure out what that opportunity really looks like. There's other BD opportunities we're working on that are accretive to what SIM does related to IoT and other types of things that would basically help the business grow from that perspective. So this is going to continue to really look at JV type opportunities, M&A type opportunities, those things in other industries and verticals that we can apply this technology to through 2022. Probably going to get really hyper focused on where we can apply this technology in other industries. Just some investment highlights. I think we're close here. First mover advantage, 3 to 5 years head start from IP and cloud perspective. Talked about high on our ownership. Strong, data's platform. We're starting to, really focus our data science team on that. So these are the main things that probably look at, basically where we think we are. We're going to get pretty aggressive in 2022. We're going to hire more people, and we're really going to start focusing on, these customers. We've got a lot of customer input coming inbound now, lots of white space with new opportunities. So we're going to get people so we can attract and start, just make sure that we keep that first mover advantage. Going to really revamp kind of how we go to market and sales, see if we can shorten the cycle more, etc. So that's the main thing. And I noticed that we have some questions. So I'm going to jump to those. Let me confirm here. Yep. So first one is Phillips 66 reduction of pipeline leaks has been remarkable. Yes, we have had other customers that we've identified threats that they didn't know about. One of the things that we'd hoped to do in the last year and a half is actually go visit with customers and start laying down these types of events. So we can actually, in our contracts with them, we typically have clauses that they'll share that learning with us. Yeah, like if we hadn't been running, cognitive integrity management, we would have never found these three things, and these three things cost this. Get back on the road a little bit. We're going to go sit with the directors of integrities of these companies and start aggregating it. Really beneficial for us is that we had our first H2 customer workshop, and we have our H1 2022 in the end of February, where we're going to bring all of our customers actually in a room, and they're actually going to stand up at the podium and drive how they use the solution to other customers. And this is where we hope we can start kind of putting on paper and getting these things from the customers on, how has it helped them drop. We are getting a lot of traction on that front from customers willing now to give us testimonials, quotes with their names that we can put in our sales documentation. So when we meet prospects, they'll know who's running this solution. So that'll start in 2022. Give us some color on importance of CIFR algorithms within SIM. So these people are PhD research, been doing it for 25 years. They're helping both PHMSA and SEDAR in the Canadian regulatory market drive what risk needs around these models, and they want to continue to do that research. They want to continue to be research. They're just not a software company. That's why this partnership worked. So we've been working with them ever since we got it. We have a standing meeting, and they engage with our prospects or our customers and prospects for that matter on helping us basically make sure we can go to market, because they're incentivized for us to basically deploy their models across this 150,000 miles of pipe, which, by the way, have both reliability and historical based models, and historical do not require piggable runs. And so our initial kind of go to market will be on the piggable, the reliability type models on the ILI type data. And then they have a bunch of other models that once we kind of work through this pattern to get to the what they call in the US, non-regulated lines. So we can run risk models on that, hence why we changed our licensing, so people could just run risk if they wanted to without having to deal with ILI. So we got lots of moving pieces that we need to put together and get ready to kind of launch into the market from that perspective. Are there other outside oil and pipeline analytics that envision being incorporated into SIM? One of the things that we're looking, and we have upcoming meetings, is that we're making enough traction, and these larger operators have teams of people that have their own data science people. What they don't have is software people, and so they've acknowledged the fact that from a data management perspective, that they can use SIM as the platform that can call out to their own algorithms and continue in that flow that we have and do their own reporting. We're using Power BI. We just need to do a save as, so we'll start those conversations as well. Major benefits based on U.S. recent infrastructure funding. We believe there's going to be, we see operators talk about their ESG from a perspective of social. We all know that pipeline operators have lost their social license, so this helps kind of the social thing on, hey, we're digitally transforming, we're actually managing these pipeline systems. From a governance perspective on the PHMSA stuff, PHMSA is going from one operator to the other, and they're one of our largest, the one that we just signed, has been in a mega audit the last week, and they're using our solution and having those conversations with PHMSA, who will then leave and go to the next operator. So that's all about governance. We think the infrastructure thing is going to help. Specifically, I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago on the industry from a hydrogen, CO2, repurposing their pipelines. So those conversations and pilots at pipeline operators are happening as we speak, as well as, most exciting for us is if we can get through this water and figure out if there's a business go to market there. We think there's going to be a lot of infrastructure around that, replacing water pipelines. So that is where we're sitting at. I think we just ran out of time. So I appreciate everybody for taking the time. I think I've got through all the questions. So thank you much for participating. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I have emails up here. Thank you.